Welcome to May 2025, what is sure to be another most insane month in a most insane year. There is no way we're leaving this month the same way that we have entered. To put it glamorously, weeks upon weeks of portals. This is an incredibly intense turning point. If we have not heard the alarm, may we get woken up these weeks. And no, not everyone is going to wake up. What it is we are waking up to is the reality of our species. Folks, this is the work I do. This is real astrology in a world where real astrology is getting lost due to the upsurge of clickbait crap astrology. You have to have discernment. I don't want to waste any more idle time. There's so much to talk about in regards to what's happening this month. This is the big rake up. This is the big stir. This is the big projectile vomit of the really, really deep muck, bile, the bullshit that has to be brought to the surface. There is one planet and one sign through which this phenomena occurs. That is Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio. Pluto just stationed a couple days ago at 3 degrees of Aquarius. And the full moon coming up mid-month, May 12th, is ruled by Pluto. So this full moon is going to illuminate what it is we're already sensing with Pluto now stationed retrograde. This is the Pluto station of the year where everything gets raked up. It isn't so much about getting slung into the future. It is about digging up everything, getting it all out so we can purge what is no longer needed and then bring it back in and then go off into the future with a totally reborn, a totally reformatted everything. It's going to be like a chemical reaction where there's no way out but through. And what it is that can be going on is an awakening, is an activation. Pluto is a generational planet. This is actually the best way to understand and study generations. Boomers, millennials, generation, it's all reflected in Pluto. As Pluto transits a sign, you get a soul pod where they all have the same intention. So we're going to speak intergenerationally today to understand what the heck's going on in our world. And Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, is the planet that specifically rules the species. There is a species consciousness where all of us, completely diverse, are still interconnected via a singularity. You could say an oversoul for all humanity. That is Uranus, that is Aquarius. So this is Pluto stationing in Aquarius, our species attempting to wake up to what the human species is, the human condition, the struggle between good and evil, and what can we therefore do in this circumstance where the stuff of fantasy and fiction and Star Wars is becoming our reality because all of those fantasies and all of those stories are addressing reality. This is their actual experience here on Earth. Now, you may have heard me in prior work mention the correlation between Aquarius and the actual historical phenomena of the Nazi Party. The Nazis were an Aquarian group. So you bet since the beginning of this year have been really shaken up because it's like, okay, here we go. You have to wait for the archetype to line up. Then you see it for what it is. Okay, I guess Nazis are coming back. Why? The archetype of Aquarius rules trauma. It rules the phenomena where our consciousness fragments in order to protect ourselves from a traumatic situation. That is called disassociation. The implementation of disassociation is how any genocidal group can convince humans to betray, to vilify, and eliminate other humans, which requires a dehumanization. So the disassociation is how we get into dehumanizing acts. Also, the phenomena of eugenics, completely Aquarius, a sign of science. Superiority complex. Aquarius is, we can make things better. We can make this species better. We can make humanity better. So this is, again, entirely within the Aquarian archetype. Pluto just entered Aquarius this last year. It is introducing this whole phase human beings must go through in the next couple of decades. Aquarius is also fundamentally judgmental. It's a very interesting sign because of how dichotomous it is. You deal with Aquarius souls that are deeply humanitarian, all about liberation. The high Aquarius is about breaking chains of conditioning, of what's unnatural, such as oppression, which we're definitely going to get into discussing today as well. But it's also this humanity sucks. Humanity could be so much better. We could be decades in the future. We could be living in utopia. This could be a Renaissance age, yet we're choosing to go backwards. Is the divine discontent of Uranus, the divine discontent of Aquarius. All pioneering souls have this innate restlessness for which we can take enormous criticism for, but we're actually holding the torch for all humanity to go into the future. I have to admit, this is a part of my role on the actual soul level function, because what I've realized is much of what I preach and say is going to be commonplace about 10 years after I say it. So I've taken a lot of heat for the negativity and the criticisms in recent years that you're going to now hear coming from everyone as the species is becoming self-aware. My criticisms and negativity was not to throw anyone down. It was to hopefully help us prepare for the life that we are living. It comes out of my heart and care for you. Because we're at the tail end of Pisces, all that is coming up in the world, we have to look at as a collective. This is the necessary experience to wrap up the Pisces age. At the tail end of any astrological age, there is a culmination, which means a buildup of the whole theme, the whole evolutionary direction, what it is we're supposed to be learning for the last 2,000 years. It builds up in this huge, now you got to see it. Did you get it? Or are there loose ends? Are we going to make it into the next age? Or do we have to roll back because humanity is not aligned with its own evolutionary direction? So the shadow of Pisces is where blind faith becomes being a victim. Because if you go out in the world, like I've mentioned with astrology, yeah, anybody who says they're an astrologer, I'm going to believe everything that they say. Boy, are you going to get messed up, because I think my main job in doing one-on-one readings is actually correcting the damage caused by other so-called astrologers. This is not a world where simply faith and trust and having a big heart means you're going to walk on water. And I've seen all the new age bullshit where everything lines up for you when you're in alignment, so you just walk forward and literally the road forms before you as you walk, which is total horseshit. There are times in our life that happens, which actually reflects in our astrology. Those are times when things are aligned. That never goes on forever, because we live in a reality that fundamentally rests on the principle of evolution. That is the force of Pluto itself. Stagnation is the actual hell. Progress is the whole aim of the game. So yeah, we definitely want to be oriented with such evolution or progress, or else our lives are guaranteed to become harder. Why? At the tail end of the Pisces age, might we have to look at delusions? Might we have to look at fantasies and deception, which has a lot to do with cult dynamics. There's so much in the astrology that's reflecting cult dynamics because there's two particular polarities that rule this phenomena. First, Leo Aquarius. Aquarius is the group, the community, the one-size-fits-all hive mind that's following a Leo cult leader, the one who sticks out like a sore thumb, the one who's the centerpiece that the whole group revolves around. Leo Aquarius polarity, as well as Virgo Pisces polarity, because Pisces is the belief system that sweeps us off our feet, and then we merge and we become a singularity Pisces. We all look the same. We all dress the same. We believe there's a one-size-fits-all. We think that spirituality looks a particular way. It looks like you have a beard and you're speaking like a Swami and you have no ego. This is incredibly misled, as every single human is a divine child of God with a completely unique direction, completely unique gifts. Therefore, our highest potential is going to be a different version of sparkly, of glowing for each and every one of us. Okay, so wrapping up the tail end of Pisces and entering the age of Aquarius is forcing this Virgonian need to discern, to evaluate. Are these beliefs healthy? Are these beliefs helping me form a healthy relationship to the world, to other people, to my job? Or is it causing problems? Is it causing me to not understand what's going on? Beliefs can be helpful or harmful. The way a belief can inspire us, we can attune to something through a belief, through that healthy faith. Yet if it is not really faith, what is it we're giving our power away to? May not be what it is we thought it was. This is the Antichrist age that we're entering. This is a part of the Aquarian archetype as well. And believe it or not, that one I was aware of and preparing for the last decade. So trust me, what's going on in the world is considerably surreal, because I had hoped that everything that I was getting prepared for wasn't real. Yet it absolutely is. Something I've had the foreshadowing of is the discrepancy between generations. This again is sure to come up this month because we're dealing with huge economic changes as Uranus completes Taurus. Again, at the end, there is a culmination. Uranus has been going through Taurus the last 7 years, revolutionizing the global economy. It's the next couple of months when Uranus finishes Taurus that everything gets dialed up, everything changes, and then Uranus goes into Gemini later on this summer. So this is the spur that's bringing up this evaluation. Aquarius is this observation from a higher vantage point. This association can be good or bad. Every phenomena in life can be good or bad. It's not what it is, it's how we're using it. It's how we're approaching it that makes all of the difference in the world. We wouldn't even want to say that a cult's a bad thing necessarily, right? I mean, these are words that we have impressions of, and we don't even know what they mean. We need to know what a cult is. We need to know what a narcissist is. We need to understand the relationship between the cult and the narcissist. What is narcissistic abuse? What happens in narcissistically abusive households that function identically to cults? The nuclear family itself is a modern day cult. Relationships can be a cult of two. We exist in a fantasy. We exist in our own world, and we're the only ones. What is very common in such cult-like dynamics that is absolutely negative is when we believe we're all right and everyone else therefore must be wrong. Are we not seeing the absolute manifestation of that evil in this world? Evil's tricky. It shows up in so many different ways. One of the ways it shows up is through this ignoring of what's going on. It's not a big deal. It'll take care of itself. Let the justice system work. And that is evil. The normalization of evil is evil too. So no one is safe. We have to be discerning. That is the human experience. Now, many of you have heard me prepare us for Jupiter's forthcoming square with the moon's nodes. This is exact on May 18th. This specifically is the transit that challenges our conscience. There's going to be people that absolutely spiritually bypass, that absolutely, I can totally be a villain because I got this special badge. I am totally can be a villain. I'm going to murder all of these children, of which war is generally a war on children. So do we think any war isn't evil? Come on. We're seeing how widespread this actually is, and it's actually everywhere, including in ourselves. The highest octave we can get to at this time is in looking out in the world and not saying we're identical to that, but understanding that exists in potential. All of this is showing our potential. Even the orange man ruling the United States, the lemming leader, is showing our potential. There is a part of him in ourselves. That doesn't mean that we're going to send ourselves to jail. It is that inner awareness that allows us to be a good person. It is the awareness of your own inner shadow, the awareness of your own inner potential for evil that allows for you to be a good person. If you have none of that awareness, if you're automatically on team good guy, you are already possessed by evil. That is the fact. That is the force. That is the reality. And Jupiter in Gemini means we must address this reality. There is good and there is evil in our world. Generally, what good means is we are helping one another to end suffering and to therefore come into our greatest creative potential, is where that one would eventually lead. Whereas evil is going to actually turn in some way, shape, or form into a shadow projection, which means the part in ourself that is potentially evil, that we can't look at in ourselves, we need to find a scapegoat for. So to project this outside of ourself, that is the root of all evil. This is very, very much being brought up by Jupiter square the nodes in Gemini. There's no way around it. If people are denying evil, they are already completely possessed by it. And if we don't understand where, how, and why we can or do become possessed by evil, we are very, very likely to become possessed by it. We have to become self-aware of that potential in ourselves, or else we ourselves are not a safe person. And I'm letting you know this is the way to evaluate all of our relationships. Who are we going to really be open to? This awareness is to determine who is a safe person, period. Because if you do not know anyone's shadow, you do not know the soul. And if you do not know your own shadow, you therefore do not know yourself. Now, generational astrology, I said I would get to it. Pluto soul groups are generational evolutionary stages, phases. We each have a different contribution back to the collective depending on what generation we're born in. And the generation, by the way, who we tend to go to school with, is usually reflecting back to us all of these prior lifetimes. It's actually going to spur that generational work through this life. Now, I'm going to, in this video, focus on the Pluto Scorpios because this is the big Pluto Scorpio month. The full moon's in Scorpio, Pluto's stationing. So this is going to be relevant. I'm going to go much more in depth because this generation is having their Pluto squares in the next couple of decades. But this is going to be something that all of us can be aware of just to understand how these dynamics work. So growing up, I became hyper aware. I'm in the scapegoat generation from a very young age, because that's how I am. I know what's going on. People give me tons of shit for it. Then it ends up unfolding exactly as I called it after everyone's forgotten that I called it. And I literally went through my Facebook deleting 17 years of posts the other day. And that's where I had this profound realization where it's like, holy shit, everyone in the new age is saying what I was saying in my teens when I wasn't being taken seriously then. And now I'm not being taken seriously now. And what I've been saying the last few years, everyone's going to be saying a decade from now. Because we're going to have to wake up to the actual reality of the circumstance, which means we're no longer able to just deceive ourselves, make believe, lock ourselves super sheltered into a closet and invent magical figures, and that becomes our reality. This is going to force us to address what's actually going on in the world. It's going to force us to become awake, hopefully. Because again, this always dials down to a choice, which means what? Unfortunately, we are all going to witness so many fucking people lose it this month. We are going to witness so many people go off the deep end this month of May 2025. Please be careful. Any one of us can slip off the deep end. Be careful with the religious beliefs. Be careful with the new age shit. People are going to go fucking crazy in order to cope. Actually coming out of fear, actually coming out of insecurity. If we address those things early, I suggest you do that. Burst the bubble as soon as possible. If you get any sense that this may be a bubble, it may be illusion or a delusion, test it and break it as soon as possible. You're going to save yourself so much hell if you take it upon yourself to do it sooner rather than later. This is about bursting bubbles. That's what the phenomena of Aquarius does as well. And it needs to happen if we don't want to go back into a Nazi Holocaust-like time. Can we not see the extreme irony and hypocrisy that's going on in the world? It's this Gemini phenomena we all have to take a look at. The fact that we're on the planet at this time means we have to take a look at this. If you're burying your head in the sand, I'm letting you know you already are possessed by evil. It is the force of evil encouraging us to just back away from the reality that we were born to experience, the life that we were born to live. Okay, so compare, do Gemini, do Mercury, discern. Compare means you put the so-called founder of evolutionary astrology, who most people think is the founder of evolutionary astrology, who you're only going to get an elementary school education of evolutionary astrology, compare that to Jeffrey Wolf Green, the actual founder of evolutionary astrology, who most so-called evolutionary astrologers have never learned, heard, or read. Read it, hear it. You're going to become aware of the difference between an elementary school education versus someone who has a college degree or a doctorate. There's honestly no comparing, but most people don't even get to the real truth. We cop out before we get there. And I have witnessed this again and again and again. It's not only other generations making the Pluto Scorpio millennials into scapegoats, we do it to ourselves because that's what we've been trained to do. There are some of the brightest and darkest souls within the Pluto Scorpio generation. Trust me, I was growing up with all of them. Real sadists, real fucked up souls with angels, because that's what you get in Scorpio. You get the brightest of the bright, you get the darkest of the dark, and it is an engine in order to burst us into this evolutionary power potential. Now, to cut straight to the chase to my fellow Pluto Scorpios, it's actually a part of our evolutionary intention via the polarity of Taurus that we may not be as rich as prior generations. Who could imagine that in today's day and age? This is actually in alignment with our soul group to be learning Taurus, minimalization, less is more, self-provision, returning to the earth, of which our generation can actually be the masters of this. The, communal farm raising type, all of this is like, these are going to be the real inventors of that are coming out of the Pluto Scorpios. But again, we're looking at Pluto Leos that we went to school being bombarded by, and my father smacking me across the face of, you are born into a middle-class American family, so you have to do things this way, and this is what's going to be expected for you, and this is the world that is there, and this is the world that is you're going to get. And I knew it was fucking horseshit. I fought it the whole time, and it is absolutely horseshit as we see what's going on in the world. We were not taught the actual skill sets that we need to function in the world. I'm not just talking about Pluto Scorpios, I'm talking about all of us now, because we've been in this stupid, outdated, manipulative, how to keep the intelligence and the power and the money for very, very few. We can't deny that. It is extremely obvious that this has been the case, at least here in the States, since the Reagan era. Trickle down obviously doesn't work. And this is something to be aware of. Since I'm talking so much about good and evil, we have to be prepared. We have to protect ourselves. For example, Americans with superiority complex, which is definitely a cultural thing, who think the rest of the world is going to take pity on us when they see us struggling, we have to be prepared for what this world actually is. We're seeing it, which is the person at the top of the food chain, the fattest, richest person, has the most pathology that keeps them hoarding more. This is actual psychology. It's not just that they're evil people, which they are, obviously. It is the actual psychology of power and money. You become fucking insane. You lose association with the rest of your species, and as a result, the entire species suffers as the result of a very select few. This is particularly the Pluto Leos. Why? These were the regal, royal, were entitled to it, people that fucked up the entire world, most of which are going to enjoy their regal retirements before leaving their body after they took out all of their shit on the Pluto Scorpios. Even in the last few years, I'm hearing from Pluto Leos in my family, why don't you just buy a house, Timothy? Don't you have a job? Aren't you working hard? That means you should be able to buy a house. You're so fucking out of it. And what I'm noticing now is the Pluto Scorpios are beginning to be scapegoated by younger generations as well. And I was just waiting for that one. I predicted this for years and years. The Pluto Aquarius generation that's just beginning to get bored now is not going to take the Pluto Scorpio seriously at all. Once we're the elders, it's going to be like, you guys fucked up so bad. We're going to take the shit for every previous generation. Now that humanity's waking up to the reality, we're going to get the shit stick. Just be prepared for it, my Pluto Scorpios. And the rest of y'all, please be aware of what it's actually like to be a millennial. I'm letting you know, we are the trash bin generation. This is fundamentally scapegoating. Scapegoating is a narcissist cult thing to do. We are perfect. We are on team good guy. So we now need to outsource the potentially bad parts in ourselves, which is how we become truly evil, which is how we become the very thing we are ironically fighting, is when we do shadow projection and we take our own bullshit and find someone else to put it on. And anyone, if they're speaking in this one size fits all, oh, everybody's this way. I don't care if it's, oh, men are this way or this nation is this way. It is super immature. And this person has no idea what they're fucking talking about to put things in that type of black and white. Sure, we can make generalizations. Generalizations exist. Specify that before you say the one size fits all bullshit that's going to make you a container for evil more so than goodness. We have to be aware there are so many fucking people who think they are on team good guy. They think they're an extraterrestrial. They think they aren't going to have future karma. They are inventing narratives to bypass and avoid. The Nazis did what? Disassociate in order to commit absolutely atrocious acts. There's a specific German word for it, I forget, but this disassociation was how they did everything. It's like you sent Jews in, they're being gassed, right? Because you don't see them. You don't have to participate in that. It's just like, boop, you press the button and it's just like a machine. I didn't even really do anything to them. My job is just to press the button. Is it really me then? I'm just the button pusher. That is the actual psychology that allows for entire groups of people to become mentally hijacked, to be totally manipulated. It is going to get complex. People, I think, at their core are innocent. Even the most atrocious evil beings on the planet, that doesn't mean that we enable it. It doesn't mean that we say that's okay. It doesn't mean that we don't have to sometimes fight evil. This is the entire purport of the Bhagavad Gita, which, by the way, if you have not read, please do yourself the favor and read this ancient, wise text, especially if you're into New Age spirituality. Please learn the actual wisdom that's been here before you pick and choose this clickbait, New Age, Antichrist religion. The Bhagavad Gita is the analogy for the times we live in, the Kali Yuga, and the whole point is Arjuna is a good man. He says, I don't want to fight. I don't want to be a bad, I hate fighting. And they're family members on both sides. And Krishna, who's the symbolic God, all in all, the force of goodness, says, I know, nobody wants this, but you have to. It's literally circumstantial, Gemini. Because we are in this situation, you have to fight. Fight for me. Fight for the force of goodness. Fight for the force of love. Those spiritual bypassing, if you want to be a priest for the rest of your life, that's fine, but this whole species is not going to survive by everybody being a priest. We have to have different people in different places, including the warrior class. And we're all going to be asked to be warriors very soon. I hope we're prepared for some of what can be coming up, because Saturn is entering Aries at the end of this month. And you know what? Bubble bursting is due to happen here. Not totally, because it's going to continue through the rest of this year. Saturn doesn't pass Neptune in new phase until February 20th of 2026. So Saturn's going to push into Aries, come right up to Neptune, then go back into Pisces on the 1st of September. Station direct the end of November, go back into Aries again, mid-February. So there's going to be some loose ends, fall time, in regards to the dream, in regards to the fantasy, in regards to some of the spiritual experiences, which can be very much coming up in a very polar opposite type of way. Because when the polar opposites are as dialed up as they are apparently on the face of the earth right now, we can see evil, we can see good very, very clearly. We learn through opposition, we learn through duality. That is the whole purpose of why everything is. So that way consciousness can become aware of itself through the actual fragmentation and the examination through duality, polarity, which would otherwise there would be no experience if there is no duality or polarity. So this is what we are examining. The real versus the unreal, good versus evil, true versus false. What is real love? What is a deceptive type of love? Because just to say I love you could mean anything. And I love you could even be gaslighting. Oh, you're pointing out something? Well, I don't know, I love you. You know, why are you complaining? I love you. I am personally, by the way, choosing to go no contact with my entire extended family at this time because of how severe their gaslighting is. I believe I'm one of the most gaslit people I know of so far in my life. Come back to the astrology. Isn't it interesting how a few weeks ago we were all like, when is the energy going to come back? We're feeling lethargic. Can we even remember when that was? It was just a few weeks ago. Now Venus is forming a first quarter trine. Venus in Aries trying to Mars and Leo at the end of this month. Energy, determinism, passion, anger. Boy, are we going to see a lot of anger. And it's necessary anger. We have to stand up. We have to fight. It is what we learn on this planet. If we are aligned with true love and true goodness, it does get more complex than, a cuddle bear, a Care Bear type of spiritual reality. This is going to be the end of the Care Bear type of New Age, which is why I've been happily preparing us for the time that we are now already in. Okay, Mercury's still joined with Chiron. We need to have these conversations, even if they're a little bit tricky. All right, Mercury's going to square Pluto on the same day of this full moon. This can also bring this tremendously scrutinizing mind, and boy, what we're saying can be very sharp. That's a part of my makeup as a Mercury-Pluto quincunx. So there can be the sharp, intense, it just comes out. Full moon in Scorpio. We have to hold each other's hair. It doesn't look pretty. It's not going to feel nice. It is absolutely necessary. Think about this. We all have bile from past lives. It may not even be personal. We need to trigger one another to get that bile out, so that way we're not stuck in the prison of the past. That becomes oppression manifest. If we choose the past, we choose the past, we choose the past, we're choosing hell. We're choosing prison. It will become manifest if we don't fight that force of anti-progress. You could say that that is the force of evil in itself because God intends evolution. That is God's design. That is God's plan. Now, I think I got to most of it. I would think, as we're entering Aquarian reality, we may be noticing this fractal-like experience. I'm just saying this from my personal experience of being the scapegoat, because I was scapegoated all of my childhood, then I was scapegoated in my first relationship, I was scapegoated by all of my friends, but for whatever reason, the last year was like a fucking scapegoat fractal. It was like every day, every week, every person, every interaction, and what that did eventually was fucking explode me into something else. Like I'm not even remotely close to the person I was a couple weeks ago in the last video you may sense, and that's because there's this explosion that's going on that is changing my relationship to humanity. And how it's changing, not to be depressing, I was the soul that knew we could get into a Renaissance age. I was the soul that knew I held some of that, and I worried about being narcissistic, but then as it unfolded, that ended up being true and continued to be proved true. And I had this overexcitement thing. And that overexcitement would continuously get in the way. It would ruin this, that, the other thing, because my overexcitement would just come out. It was too intense, and then people couldn't hang. Well, I'll let you know that excitement is very much being curbed. As I'm now preparing for, Renaissance age, maybe in future lifetimes, we'll sow the seeds for that, but Pluto Scorpios are getting ready to live more of a minimalistic lifestyle. And that can actually be our enlightenment. It is in hell, where this most intense dichotomy between good and evil exists. That is what can wake us up and we become enlightened. In the dark age, where the Rakshasas, the demons who just want 5 minutes of pleasure and would destroy the earth for it, rule the world. That's the definition of the Kali age in Hinduism. In such a time, particular souls wake up. They become enlightened in the intensity of the dichotomy between light and dark, just like the Buddha, who was enlightened under a Scorpio full moon. All right. You can't make this shit up. When you get into the real astrology, you're going to understand life for what it is. If you're not getting that from astrology, it's not real astrology. Now, to leave us off with a bit of hope, because I know this is heavy-handed, but just wait till the end of this month. I don't make the rules, guys, I'm not going to say too negative, but we need to be prepared. We have to be aware that tensions are growing and fighting is pretty much inevitable. All right. Sometimes there's no way out but through. So remember that Bhagavad Gita analogy, because if we are still fighting from our hearts, we will be protected in the ultimate sense. And I love when, again, the new age bullshit is like, oh, when you're spiritually evolved, you manifest a mansion. Those are not spiritual people. Do not be deceived by those people that will mislead you from your authentic spiritual journey. You will be spiritually protected by shit falling apart in your life. People manifesting a fucking mansion are not spiritual. You will be protected spiritually by this relationship that was a trap falling apart, this job that was a trap falling apart, your family that you were trying to please falls apart. That is the hidden blessing in authentic spiritual protection. It actually forces us via, again, this minimalist Pluto Scorpios. It's not the end of the world. We can actually get into more of a feeling of richness than anyone else, despite the fact that we're going to be the scapegoats intergenerationally. Asteroid Ceres, I'm going to leave us off with a bit of hope here, was discovered at the beginning of the 1800s and is correlated with Black emancipation and women's suffrage. Okay, that was going on in the 1860s. So Ceres has this caring for humanity. She was the first of this reintroduction of all these feminine asteroids, because interestingly, as soon as asteroids start getting discovered, they break the pattern of planets always being named after Roman gods. Asteroid Ceres begins the pattern of, all of the first asteroids were, for the most part, named after goddesses. Simultaneously, the world experiences women's suffrage and Black emancipation. So this is fundamentally the caring, the warmth, the provision, the nutrients and nutrition, as Ceres is where we get the word cereal from. She's the goddess of the grain. She is usually holding either a stalk of grain or a poppy flower, which does what? Comfort us, makes us feel safe in this world. Not that I'm saying get into poppy, but the fundamental safety, comfort, relaxation, that is a Ceres principle. This is the mother asteroid. Very, very lunar asteroid in the asteroid belt. A minor planet and the first asteroid to be discovered, okay? She is joining Saturn on May 13th, the day after this full moon, in the last few degrees of Pisces. This is bringing a huge amount of attention to social duty, social obligation, what we're giving back to the world. It is calling us to be that warmth, to be that caring force in some societal offering, in some societal duty. Then Ceres goes into Aries, the 18th. She's in Aries from now on. She goes back to the beginning of Aries to station direct in November. So here's the point. Ceres goes into Aries the 18th of May. Now, the warmth, the provision, the nutrition is through what we're standing up for, through what we're fighting for. And that goddess's essential caring and warmth is being directed towards the warriors. Yes, we need you. Yes, I need me. I can support myself in being the individual that I am, standing up for what is right. And as we liberate ourselves, we become capable, therefore, of liberating others. Only the free can liberate others. So we begin by freeing ourselves so that way we have the capabilities, the resources, the skills, the attention, the respect. We have to have respect. If we're being gaslit by everyone in our life, if you've spent 12 years doing something professionally that has proved itself in worth and value, and everyone chooses to project some fucking narrative onto you anyways, it's not a safe place. It's not a respectful place. Get yourself to high ground first. Once we're at the high ground, we can breathe. Then we've got the energy. Then we can go back into the world without being dragged down, without being unfazed. This is a dichotomy. Because I'll let you know, just like how I said, Pluto Scorpios are the scapegoat generation. I've also seen us scapegoat the living shit out of each other. And as soon as someone gets, mommy and daddy buys them a mansion, or you finally get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, it's like, grab onto that, exit the world, fuck everybody else. We're going to see this is how humans behave. The person who's told they're a winner is going to start acting, feeling, and behaving like a winner. The person that's told they are a loser is going to start feeling, acting, and behaving like a loser. Even the clothes that we wear, how we dress up, how we appear, it affects our identity, it affects how we see ourselves. We're about to be extremely shaken up by such forces, by such projections. Ladies and gentlemen, please be aware of what drove the Nazis into being one of the most comic book examples of evil on this planet. It's through disassociation. The combination of we're on team good guy, find a scapegoat to project all of our evil onto, then we dissociate, so we're not really even seeing or feeling them, which makes it easy to vilify them. It makes it easy to exterminate them. Oh yeah, we're getting way better now that we're getting rid of all this shit we're not looking at. It is the way to go back into prehistoric times. We're about at that point where great civilizations fall. We're about at that point where we just discovered amazing technology 3 seconds before it blows up the entire planet. These are Atlantean times. There are souls on the planet at this time that remember every single time we've got to this point in evolution and then blew everything up. My guess is many civilizations have gotten to this point and blew themselves up already on this planet Earth. Are we going to learn from our past mistakes? Are we going to actually learn and get an education in a world where we're clearly seeing the reality that ignorance and evil generate the same result? Ignorance, I'm not going to look at them, generates the same result as evil. Someone cries out for help, we look the other way, is the downfall of our civilization. And if we're going to pretend that we are an advanced civilization, we have to support the person at their lowest. That should be the definition of a successful country or nation. That country or nation that has uplifted themselves the most, that is now uplifting the rest of the world the most through charitable actions, should be how we evaluate what a successful nation is. If we cannot do that for each other, do we really think that's going to happen in the world? If we ask for help and everyone turns the other way, it's going to be everybody. Everybody falls down because the one person at top is going to do what we're all doing and look the other way while the entire species goes under the waves, and that one person believes that they are entitled to restart the entire human race. That would probably be a heavily Aquarian person if I had to guess. Be useful to learn some astrology, take a look at some charts. Folks, you can get such an in-depth education yourself. I hope to see you at the Q&A at the end of the month. I hope to see us in an incredibly confident, excited, seeing the negative without throwing it out so we don't turn into evil, but also starting to see the hidden blessings that comes out of what's stereotypical at the front of Aquarius: oppression, 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 Saturn, 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 that loads a spring that Aquarius suddenly lifts off. May that be the case in incredibly beautiful, inspiring, lovely, fundamentally good ways for each and every one of us. Please do take care.